So, Andrew, welcome to the podcast. Can you introduce yourself and what you do?
Excellent. Thank you, Chad. Yes, hello. My name is Andrew Vanderbeek. I, 12 years ago, founded a small business accounting firm called Illuminate,
Mm.
based on the Mornington Peninsula in Victoria. And over the last 12 years, have found myself in a whole world of interesting stuff within the accounting industry and more recently outside of things like running and driving a real cloud-focused accounting firm back when that was a big new vibey thing to putting on events for accountants. The Rumble, we take people into the wilderness and hang out and collaborate and connect. To speaking around the world, I've been lucky to do that as well. And then more recently, I have running a co-working space. I run a retail and e-commerce business in the bathroom renovation space, and a couple of podcasts that you may have listened to. All Aussie Accounting Adventures,
Yes, I
which you
am
can get where
familiar.
all the good shit is.
It is where all the good shit is. I enjoy the podcast. And so tell me, 12 years, it's a long time.
Mm,
I'm sure
yes.
the scene, the industry has changed a lot in 12 years. Can
Mhm.
you wrap up how is it different now than when you began?
Yeah, look, I think there's probably a photo I could share. I don't have it now, but I'll send it to you later of like Andrew when he started Illuminate and Andrew now. Actually, it was Andrew during the midst of lockdowns.
Yeah.
But I guess that the change that I think I've seen from a handful of things, but what I've personally experienced is there's been a change in embracing and being comfortable with who you are in that
Mm.
space. There still is a lot of, and I have no issues with it, but a lot of suit and ties and corporate kind of accounting world. But I think the more human, the more relaxed, the more relationship focused and more driven space has really excelled over the last 12 years, and we've seen a lot of that. People who are more focused on purpose and impact, we've seen a lot of that. So that's probably one component. There's a human
Mm.
component, right? There's shift of humans and how we do that, as well as like we won't get into that depth, but like humans' desire to be accountants. Um, the second layer would be you've got obviously the services we deliver and how we do that. So if you look at the technology evolution over the last 12 years and dealing with all the technology stuff we'll deal with the next 12 years, that's changed dynamically. Um, as well as the expectations of people with accountants. They really want us to do more than keep them out of jail.
Mm.
They want us to help them grow good businesses and stuff, and they've got wild expectations of what that looks like compared to the reality of maybe what an accountant can do.
Keeping out of jail is a really great goal to have, and
It
so
is.
I'm
It's
glad
not a
that
bad thing.
I'm glad you're
Not at
achieving
all.
that for your clients. It's fantastic. When you talk about embracing and feeling comfortable with who you are, it's interesting that for such a long time we've expected accountants to be a certain type of person, a certain
Mhm.
type of presence in our lives, in our businesses. Why do you think there's a shift to the more personal, the more relation focused accountant rather than the suit and tie buttoned up version?
I think there's a few reasons. I think if you look at like the time period that we operate in the last kind of 10 to 15 years and so on, I kind of like it. It's very much the experience time period, right? We're very
Mm.
experience driven. So we're always looking for good experiences, great experiences, as well as experiences that move us and things that we feel connected to. And the
Mm.
other thing I'd probably connect there is there's the purpose movement and connected there as well, like having more connection and purpose to what it is that we do, whether that's work, whether that's life, whatever that looks like. And so I think with those things come into play, people have really been seeking out and looking for an opportunity to have better experience and have more purpose.
Mm.
And then often what happens then is they might look at the current environment they're in and go, hold on a second, does this really align with what it is that I want to do? And then make some conscious decisions to find themselves in a space that maybe does align that a bit more. So I think there's a big part there. And I think the other one, there's just been a few idiots out there who have, and I mean this in a positive idiot phrase, not
Yeah.
a negative idiot, positive idiots who've just done things a bit differently and a bit wacky and maybe taken a few hits for others
Mm.
and made it easier and for other people to kind of embrace a more authentic, purposeful, like connected to who they are kind of approach to their crafters instead of maybe what they'd been told growing up in their career or what the stereotype or
Mm.
the assumption that they were kind of living to. So I think we've definitely seen a huge change in evolution in that.
That's really interesting. I really love the idea of a rising tide lifts all boats. So you're saying
Oh
that
yeah.
there's a few kind of industry shakers, a few people taking a few knocks for the team, and essentially across the board,
Mm.
improving the experience or shifting the dynamic of what we expect an accountant to be?
I mean, this is not new in our industry, right? This is more than likely going on for the tens, the hundreds, the thousands of years that the world of accounting has existed, right?
Mm.
And it's probably also not new for, we're not alone in our industry. There's multiple industries that have this thing. But I guess what it is there are, at periods of time, there are people who are making conscious decisions to approach things in a certain way. And they might do that with an element of risk attached to it.
Mm.
So, in our industry, it might have been like, more recently, it's like, all right, we're going to move away from like suits and ties and, we're going to like chill out and we're going to, be more, kind of brand driven and authenticity driven and identity
Mm.
driven. And that's kind of been a bit of the vibe. And there's been some idiots who have kind of, exposed themselves a bit and inspired and encouraged others to do that. But
Mm-hmm.
before that part, there was other elements. And before that, there was other elements. The underpinning and the core of what it is that we do, our focus and determination to the craft, to the quality and the outcomes, I don't think have changed. It's just been more about like what humanity looks like at a point in time and how we then reveal that. And then every now and then you got a few idiots who have to just do some things unintentionally or intentionally to promote some change there.
Yeah, so this authenticity, this opening up, this more experience driven type of accountant is more a zeitgeist than it is necessarily any kind of intentional, hey, everyone should have a personal brand.
I would like to think so,
Yeah.
because I don't like the idea of telling what everybody should do.
Mm.
I love the idea of saying this is what I have chosen to do. And if for some reason you reflect that, resemble that, align yourself with that, then hey, let's go and do that either together or let's support each other whilst we do that independently,
Mm.
as opposed to you have to do this and this is a requirement and this is a thing. There's always a multitude of ways you can go about doing stuff. But I think the important thing that sits within here is it is about authenticity.
Mm.
So if you're doing something with authenticity and you're doing it like because it's who you are, then that's great. If you're doing it because someone told you that you need to do it, then it's not great. And one of the earliest ever keynote presentations I ever did, which I labeled "Everyone else is taken, so
Mm.
be yourself." The quote you might have heard, "Be yourself, everyone else is taken," was the idea of like what sucks is that people are telling you that you have to be authentic. Oh,
Gosh,
you need
yeah.
to you need to behave this way to be authentic. It's like, hold on a second, but maybe that's not who I am.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm quieter, maybe I'm louder, maybe I'm taller, maybe I'm smaller, maybe I like sport, maybe I don't like sport. Maybe I should be encouraged and empowered to be more who I am. And as a result of that, the way I lived it out and the circles that I operate in, benefit comes because of it.
I really enjoy that you've said that because I remember going to conferences and hearing people bang the drum about authenticity. And there was almost this wave of people coming out with these shortcuts to authenticity that really felt really fake, really faux authentic, which is the
How to appear to be authentic.
exactly. And like one of the things, and like it was swearing. The more you swear in your content, the more anti suit and tie you are, and the more real and authentic you are. And it just felt really grating and
Oh
really
no, that was
obvious to me.
something that people were telling you to, like, literally at these hey, you should swear more. They were encouraging people to swear more.
It wasn't this overt you should do this, but it was every speaker that got the keynote, every person whose social media got that big kick was the ones that said, "Hey, don't give an F," or the books that had the F
I'm
in the
laughing. I'm laughing at this because I am known to maybe use a foul word or
yeah.
here or there in a consistent manner, and often when I'm speaking on stage, I'm like, shit, you're talking about me, which is fine. But I guess what those conferences were looking for is they're looking for people who are going to shock people and create
Mm,
like an experience, maybe. But if it's all the same,
yeah.
there's no diversity in thought approach to what that looks like, and therefore you go, well, we're just kind of creating sheep here. We're not creating humans.
Exactly. And it becomes this almost copy paste, like I want to be this Gary Vaynerchuk, I want to be a someone or other, and just slap my name on it, which is the opposite of authenticity. And so I guess that leads to I guess a conversation around how do you take yourself, your personal experience of your life, and turn it into a packaged up version of yourself and be intentional, but not remove that authenticity but still be
Mm.
intentional. Does that make sense?
It
How do you
makes
be?
sense. Yeah. I think the first thing you need to ask yourself is that something that you want to do?
Mm,
Do you want to expose more of yourself in a more public way? Because it's really important to note that if you're going to be authentic in that, like for me, like true authenticity is also not harmful. Your
mm,
authenticity should not hurt others. That's just the first little picture note, but it
love
also
that.
should not hurt or harm you at the same time. So great, we got that out of the way. But do you want to do that? Do you have a desire to expose more of yourself to others? And exposing yourself doesn't mean running around in your underpants
Mm,
and going, "This is what I really look like behind the clothes," or having to share your deepest and darkest fears. Like I think that's what a
mhm,
lot of people say. Oh, you really need to do that to be able to sell stuff. It's not even about selling stuff.
mm,
For me, building and being authentic is a desire to be more relationally focused and more
mm,
connected with the people around me in a way that I can enjoy what it is that I do more. So my
mm,
mental wellness, my head feels better because I'm not putting a mask on any given day. And
mm,
that the people that I work with are more aligned and more in tune with who I am as a person because my authenticity will attract people who share potentially similar elements of that authenticity too, as long as it's not harmful. And that's where I
mm,
think there's elements of authenticity out there where people have opinions that they feel is appropriate to share in certain environments that will be hurtful of others. That's where that's not authenticity.
mm,
So I think that's the first thing. You got to go. Do I actually want to do that? Because I don't think you have to.
mm,
I don't think it's a requirement. I know that I haven't done anything with. I haven't sat down and be like, you know what, I want to get my brand out there, and I want that kind of stuff. It
mhm,
accidentally happened because I was just doing what I was doing, and people were like, hey, that's kind of cool. Like, we like what you're talking about. Would you like to share that more? I'm like, oh, one of my values is openness and
mm.
like having a bit of an open door policy. So let's do it. So I think that. So you tick if you want to do that. The second thing then is to whom am I being authentic and to who am I revealing myself to?
Yeah, great.
Is this designed to just simply be a better person around my friends and family? I want to be more in tune with myself, and thus I don't want to hide behind whether I have a good or a bad day, or if I like or I don't like something. Is it in a business context? Is it with my team and I want to be more authentic in that space? And so I'm going to share maybe a bit more depth around decision making that I'm doing so that my team can appreciate where I'm coming from and
Mm,
they can see that journey and they feel that it's safe for them to also expose an element of themselves to contribute. Or am I doing it for my clients where it's like I see that me being authentic in this space allows me to share stories of my journey with people who are also journeying, and what that means is the type of conversations we have in a business environment go far deeper simply than, hey, what's the number that needs to go in the box? Great, I've lodged it. This is how much tax you have to pay, and this is when you have to pay it. Excellent, catch you later. So yeah,
mm.
hopefully that answered. Was that good enough?
Yeah, I love that. I
Good.
love that you are seeing this as quite a personal journey. It's not necessarily, hey, I want to get on stage. Hey, how do I write a book? How do I become a keynote speaker? It's about this really quite a micro view of how do you want to turn up. And I love that you mentioned friends and family. I think it's something often we forget about in our how we turn up in business is how we turn up at home, and how we
Mm.
spend our days is how we spend our life.
Well, you
And
think of that too is like the more authentic I can be at work,
mm,
the easier it is for me to be better at home because I
mm,
don't have to transition. I don't have to create a huge third space to help me go. All right, I've been Andrew the accountant, the leader, the whatever, and now I need to be Andrew the dad, or Andrew the husband, or Andrew the
mm,
the friend. It's easier to transition that space, which sometimes is harder because then you can't. Maybe you're behaving in certain environments a bit more like the other, so you need to be mindful of that. But it
mm,
is. But like why are you wanting to be on stage? Why are you wanting to write a book? Why are you
mm.
wanting? What is it for? And is it for your personal gratification to feel good about you? That I would say, fuck off, go home and do it somewhere else. If
Great.
it is to benefit others,
Mm,
then the second question is, and how do you feel that you doing this would benefit others?
mm,
And then after that is, and do you believe that who you are authentically, your identity, and what you're about is beneficial to others in this environment?
mm. Ooh.
So that's where I remember a good couple of years ago when I was in the UK speaking and I delivered a keynote and I don't think I did a good job.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think I did. Now I've had some feedback afterwards that actually it was like one of the highest rated things that was really, really good. I was like, I just don't,
Mm,
so no, and I was catching up with a good friend of mine afterwards the next day or two, and I was just kind of sharing. I think I did okay, but I don't know. I just I was not feeling it. And she's like, you know what? Maybe you just need to take some time off this stuff
Mm.
and come back in a couple of years if the experiences you've experienced are something that's worthwhile sharing. So don't just do it because you feel you have to. Don't just do it because it's about yourself. Think about is what I'm learning, is what I'm going through, is it beneficial for others to be a part of that? And if it's not, I don't know, man. Like I just it's funny that we're talking about personal branding on this conversation because like I feel like I have no intentionality or desire to build a personal brand at all.
Mm.
I just simply want to help and I want to be myself whilst to do that so that there's no awkward in between bit. So
Mm.
yeah, I think yeah,
Well,
that's my
hopefully,
vibe. I'm going to drink some more whiskey whilst I think of
yeah,
this.
great. Well, hopefully the next thing I say is validating,
Please.
because the last few people I've spoken to on this podcast, I've interviewed a few people now. A lot of it has been incidental to just being who you are and turning up and
Mm,
providing value. There's some that approach it with more intention once they see that something is happening here. There's a nucleus of something greater, and I can see that this value is paying off. Uh,
hmm.
but a lot of it starts with I'm turning up for other people. I'm turning up to be of service and of value to people. And the way I'm doing that is unique to me because I am me. And so why don't I be a little bit more intentional? So a lot of people don't have some big strategy, some big plan. And I think there's value in recognizing that the people on stage, the people on podcasts, the people with a book aren't necessarily some unachievable workhorse of a person that has really mapped out 5 years worth of content and who they want to be, and that anyone turning up authentically could have some kind of impact in their community.
Yeah, no, I agree there. I think there's like you unintentionally find it, but you because of the intention of why you're there. I unintentionally have this platform, this exposure, this opportunity because I intentionally was trying to do good over here, and all of
Mm,
a sudden an opportunity arises, and that's where it's like, what do I say yes or no to now? So
mm,
if I'm doing this thing and then an opportunity arises that allows me to expose myself more and build more of a personal brand, whether I have an understanding of what I'm trying to achieve or whether simply I'm just doing what I do and people kind of like it, that's where then you have to say yes or no. Do I want to do this?
mm,
And appreciating that. For a number of people, the way that they feed themselves and their families and contribute to their communities through generating revenue through their personal brand and doing so. And that's whether you are what we would consider to be a personal branding person now, who might be an influencer on TikTok or whatever kind of stuff is out there, or simply someone who's recognized as being a great physiotherapist. You should go and see Jenny. She's fantastic at that. Like you're still leveraging an element of
mm,
who you are and you're promoting that, right? You're
mm.
promoting that I am amazing at this thing and you should come and see me and I'll contribute to that. And I guess that we can sometimes muddy up personal brand in certain spaces in a modern environment as you're just trying to leverage other people to make money. You're not actually helping and contributing, but it's just a more modern way of doing it where it's I'm not actually a physiotherapist who's going to help your leg feel better.
Mm.
I'm someone who's going to enable you to get exposure and contact to certain things, or I'm going to drive content and thought, forgive me for saying leadership, that will actually help you to be better at your craft.
Yeah, I don't think there's any shame in saying a phrase like thought leadership. I know that
I
some
say that
people.
as previously taking the award of Thought Leader of the Year off Mr. Trent McLaren out there,
Yes, yeah.
which was good fun. We joke about that. There's an image going through the internet that's one of my good friends, Brooke Holmes, put together when I inadvertently won this award of like him crowning me with like a little beauty queen princess thing.
That's
It was
fantastic.
hilarious.
I mean, it's timely because the Olympics are on. But
Mm,
what you're saying about being intentional in how I turn up, not necessarily intentional about like the content strategy, feels just like a Simone Biles quote I heard yesterday of I don't set out to win, I set out to do a good job and the winning just happens. And
mm.
it's like, wow, that's so fantastic. Set out with the intention to do good work, be of service, be of value, and the ROI on the back end, even though you might not be shooting for that ROI, it comes back to you because that's just kind of how the universe works in some way.
It's so like the two of our core values here at Illuminate: impact before income, and
Mm,
just because it's sexy doesn't mean it's sustainable. Like directly connected to that,
mm,
impact is, are we doing something well? Great. let's make sure that we can afford to continue to do that and that it rewards us. Not, hey, we can make money over here. That's fantastic. But
Mm,
is it sustainable? It might fall off a cliff. Or if people find out that we don't know what we're doing because we're kind of bluffing it, that's not great.
yeah.
And then that's the just because it's sexy doesn't mean sustainable. This
Mm,
thing might be so hot right now, but is it something you can consistently do in a way? Are you driving value? Is it going to continue to do that in the long term? Or are you just hooking into a trend and a fad that if you don't execute exceptionally well within there and then be nimble within it, it's just going to drop away, and all of a sudden you're going to be standing there by yourself in
mm,
6 to 12 months' time, going, I thought there was more to this than that. I
mm.
thought I was going to do these things, and it didn't happen.
What I love about your brand, through your personal brand, but also through Illuminate, is that it's so heavily based on purpose and value. And that isn't a trend, right? That's not a fad. And so whether you want to be on TikTok, you want to be on YouTube, you want to be on LinkedIn, or you don't want to do socials, you just want to turn up in your community or provide value that way, that it doesn't matter what the channel is. If you turn up as that authentic self through the value and through the purpose, then fads come and go. That's fine, but you will still be recognized and appreciated by your community for those things, regardless of that channel.
Yeah, you want to ensure that how you contribute and what you do can stand the test of time. That
Mm,
it's not seen to be this worked really, really good when this platform was available, but now the platform's not available. It doesn't work particularly good anymore, and people go, oh, hold on a second, you're really good over here, but over there it actually turns out that it's not that great. Like you want it to
mm.
stand the test of time,
Yeah,
and
totally.
that is, I think, where that authenticity is so key. Because if you're not, then people will eventually figure out that you're not.
Mm.
And how, I don't know, I always just think about what would my mum say?
Oh, I love that.
What would my mum be proud of this kind of stuff? Would she be like, "That's not who you are"? My mum came with me to the UK a couple of years ago. I did a month through the UK. It was ridiculous. Like what, I grew up in Frankston, which Sam Newman famously said he could buy for $1 million and get changed. I went to a public school and I'm an accountant,
Wha-
and I got to go to the UK and I spoke at a couple of conferences and spoke in pubs and stuff and clubs to like people. It was mental to think of.
Mm.
But I brought my mum along for the month because she's from Portsmouth in the UK. And
Yeah.
what I really appreciated is because parents are always going to be proud of you, right?
Mm.
But what I loved about it is mum was the way you talk about what you do and who you are and what you do, that's the person I've always known. That's the person I've always seen.
Oh, that's so
Um,
beautiful. I
and
love
as
that.
you've matured and grown, you've found a better way to be that person and you've found a better way to communicate. And that's not necessarily saying that people who are different now than when they're younger is wrong. They might have gone through some stuff, but it's like, she's like, that is who you are and you are connected to that. And I was like, oh, that's real nice. It's real nice for your mum to say that.
That's
It's real
really,
good.
yeah, that's really beautiful. There's no better litmus test than mums giving you a pat on the back and saying that
100.
was
Yeah, like,
authentic to
if
you.
you don't do it, just send your mum a message and be like, "Hey, mum, do you mind just being my little quasi or dad, or parental figure who's known you for a
Yeah.
while? Do you mind being just a bit of my litmus test here? Can you just every now and then just either rev me up because I'm consistently the person who you know I am, or tear me down if you recognize that I'm doing something that's not who I am."
Yeah, just put your mum on an auto reply to all webinar invites, and say, "Hey, mate, you've been a bit of a flog. Pull your head in." That's fantastic. You mentioned before ROI, right? So
Mhm.
this is tricky to measure, but we are a podcast for accountants, and so we are an audience and a community of people who want to know the numbers.
We need some
So
deliverables. Come on now.
exactly. So I guess my question is, for going back to your point on, we don't know if it's going to pay off, but turn up and give value and eventually it will come back to you.
Mhm.
How do you recommend someone trust that when, like, maybe I don't have time? Or perhaps to approach the question differently, can you remember a time at the start of doing this where it paid off really big for the first time? We went, wait, there's something here.
Oh yeah, I can think of a few things here. I think that first question about it is I don't, I'm going to commit to this because I think it's right, but I don't know if it's going to pay off. I'm going to show up to this thing. Often the reason you're showing up to the thing isn't because you're trying to build a personal brand. It's because you're looking to grow or you're
Mm,
looking to share. So it could be rocking up to a networking event. Hey, I'm going to a networking event and I'm going to learn from other people. That's fantastic.
mm,
And if I happen to also be recognized and appreciated for what it is that I bring, that's great. I'm not going to push that, but I'm going to allow that to be who I am. If people and appreciate that, that's great. So you've got that small thing, or a bigger environment of going to a conference or participating in, a round table or something like that. There's always opportunities out there, and as long as the reason you're doing it, this is Andrew's thought process. As long as the reason you're doing it is not to further your brand, but to either grow as a human or to benefit others, right? So that's the first thing. So absolutely, anything that I do, there is intention with me doing it because I either want to grow or I want to contribute. If it happens to be that other stuff that allow my a personal brand element to be focused on, then that is unintentional and appreciated. When is a time where something like that happened at a point that was off the chains? I mentioned before I won the Thought Leader of the Year award. I kind of jokingly applied for it. Pretty sure I was drunk in a pub in Amsterdam. Brooke Holmes had completed the majority of the application.
Yeah.
She was encouraging me. She's like, Andrew, you really like you're involved. She was pumping my tires like that. And if she listens to this, she knows how much I love her. But I love her. She's amazing. I love my wife more though. Sorry, Brooke. But she was encouraging me to do that. And I'm like, you know what? She's like, you've got stuff to share, and when you share, people appreciate it, and the way you go about that is impactful. I think you should really do this. I went, all right, fine. I will. I'll go for that. And I remember sitting there she was on I think it was back when we were FaceTiming because we weren't Zooming back then. And we were FaceTiming and I won it. And I was like, holy crap, what is this? And so I got to share ever so briefly on stage about that. And then a few weird things happened. One random weird thing was somehow someone that I don't know, that is not an accountant, that is in the real estate industry, found the video clip of me doing that and shared it amongst their entire network within their organization, and then shared it publicly in a Facebook group about, hey, this local guy just won this thing. And I was like, and they're like proud of that. And they're like, this is fantastic. This is amazing. And I was like, oh shit, that's kind of cool. Like
That's really cool.
Maybe the way I communicated when I received this thing, I did well because I didn't know what to say because I wasn't expecting to do it. I probably had a couple of drinks. So there's that. But then what followed from that was, I guess this is where you choose what to say yes and no to. And so I was then asked to be a part of a road tour around the country called The Accountant's Big Day Out. And now, in my more mature self right now, if I knew some of that environment or the people, most, if not all the people involved in that are great people. I should flag that. But if I knew the environment, what it is and what I was stepping into at this mature stage of my life, I might have said no to that. I might have gone, you know what? Nah, I don't think so. But what that gave to me was the opportunity to connect with people on a stage environment in a consistent manner, delivering the same kind of content over and over again. Now, this was to my accounting industry. I wasn't contributing to clients, which is weird. And people are like, why the hell do you do this after so many years of doing it? And I was like, well, I kind of figured out from early on that I'm obsessed with the potential of our industry. And if I can help to improve upon that and encourage people to do that, then that's great. And so won an award, jumped on stage, did that. And then I get a call, hey, we'd love you to come and speak in the UK. I wasn't paid to speak in the UK. At least not the first time that I went. I was invited to. I think they gave me a night's of accommodation for free. So if you ever hopped in a plane and gone to the UK and been there for a week and paid for flights and accommodation, it's a little bit more than $50.
Yeah, it's not
so
cheap.
I went, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to catch up with a few people whilst I'm there.
Yeah.
And that has enabled and allowed me to build relationships through UK and Australia, and it's enabled me to grow, I think. And because of that growth, I've been able to contribute more. And because of contributing more, it's given me more opportunities. And you look at that kind of effect of because I'm growing, right? So I either grow or I create impact. So I'm growing. Because I'm growing, all of a sudden, potentially the stuff that I'm communicating and sharing with people has more depth or more clarity, and therefore there's more opportunity to impact. And it's this massive circle that winds through. So yeah, hopefully that helps. That. It's crazy, man. I was fucking Dubai early this year.
Wow.
They're going through they've got company tax for the first time ever, and all of a sudden, as a nation and as an industry, accountants are figuring out how to do this, and they're seeing enormous opportunity in doing compliance, which is so bloody backwards to what we do here. But I loved that they were so eager and keen to connect to that, and it warmed my heart to be a part of that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Right? You mentioned earlier, and it ties into something you just said, the idea of being of benefit to others, but then figuring out how and really questioning how are you and your experiences and your stories of value to others. And I think I'd love to address a little bit of that potential imposter syndrome that people might find in that of who am I to say that I'm of value to others, but also in your journey to winning the Thought Leader of the Year award, the idea of taking the leap and almost having to pump up yourself and pitch the fact that you're of value to others. How do you marry the two together of I've got experience, how do I even figure out if this is of value to others to then eventually backing yourself to be in the race? Or is it the liquid courage always?
So I'm trying to think of a way to say this like politely and diplomatically.
Mm-hmm.
And this depends on the scale that we're talking about. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about how can I contribute and support my clients, how do I take the courage up? Like my advice is you absolutely have so many opportunities to contribute, to support, to grow, and to impact your clients, and to
Mm.
leverage potentially a personal brand, a business brand of that.
Yeah.
But mindful of, we might park this for later. I'm mindful of your personal brand and your business brand being so closely entwined that you can't get out. But that's
Mm.
for later. You would know if you have the skill set and capability to contribute at a large scale already,
Mm.
because there would be moments through your life when you were younger or when you are right now where you find yourself contributing in a way that people would like more of, and
Oh.
it could be in a friendship circle. It could be in your workplace environment. It could be in a peer group. If you are called on or asked for your input in your thought process because you've exposed yourself and you've allowed yourself to be in those environments, and if that seems to happen a lot, and if people are giving you feedback, thank you, that was so helpful. Hey, that was such a unique perspective. I really appreciate that. I've been able to do XYZ because of that. Or I just really appreciate your willingness to share. Or
Mm.
or I've never heard a perspective like that. Or, that's so consistent with what I've been thinking. You've ratified that. Like, if you're getting positive feedback on those things and you're seeing it, I would suggest that at a certain scale, you probably have that. And if you're not, you don't have to do it
Mm.
because it's not you,
Mm.
right? Like, that's not you. It's not you to jump on and spruik. Hi, my name's Andrew, and I really like this. And you know what's fantastic about it's like it's just not who you are.
Mm. It sounds like there's almost a challenge in there a little bit of you're either getting that feedback already and fantastic, why not like open up, right? That vulnerability of like putting it out to the world. But if you're not getting that feedback, it's either not true for you or are you being of value and of service to your current clients and potentially
Possibly,
there's a
possibly you're pushing too much of your agenda rather than trying to build up their
mm,
agenda. And like,
but
how do I help you in
yeah.
that space? And therefore, that helps. And what do you want to be known for? And why do you want to
Mm,
do that? And so it is like if you're not getting it, maybe there's a reason why it's not happening. It could be. Now, it could be a confidence thing.
mm,
I have met many an individual over my time who I'm like, man, how do we give them the microphone? How,
yeah, sure.
I'm just going to shut the fuck up and let them talk because they are, but this is where it comes in differently. For a lot of those people, they're like, I don't want the
Mm-hmm.
microphone. I have no desire for it. I am content and I am happy. Why would I want to do something that does not make me happy?
Yeah.
And then it's like, you know what? Don't.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's not necessarily for everyone, um, and I would say, and I like to discern or partition personal branding from thought leadership. As we discussed before, personal
That's a good
branding
point. I'm probably
is
talking
that
a lot
like
more thought leadership right now, aren't I? Yeah.
no, that's fine. I think what we said before is you can turn up authentically one on one in relationships with your clients, with your team, with your family and your friends, and I feel like that is a level of personal branding. That then pouring the gasoline on the fire, amping it up is that kind of thought leadership stuff, right? And I totally agree. Thought leadership is not for everyone, and you shouldn't be forced to do it if it's not comfortable
Would you
for you.
say though that like in a modern environment,
Mm,
when we talk about personal branding, like if you want to get really involved in it, you
mm,
have to be involved in an element of thought leadership. Like it's not, you can't separate them. You can't be like, all right,
mm,
sick, I've done a logo for Andrew. and I'm just going to put it out there. I'm going to see what happens. You have to be driving content.
Mm,
You have to be contributing into environments. And that is, for lack of a better phrase, what we would refer to as thought leadership. Now,
It
you
feels
might not be
inevitable.
you're not and the word leadership is probably maybe not right as well, like thought
Mm,
contribution, thought participation.
I like
You
that.
have to be active, you have to be seen, and you have to be involved. And then at the same time, if whilst you're active, seen, and involved, you're also appreciated,
Yeah,
you get
yeah.
that ratification. That's where it's like, maybe I am able to kind of leverage this in a
Mm,
really helpful way to help others, of which in turn will help me.
mm. I really like the workshopping of that name from thought leadership to more kind of thought contribution and kind of just being a part of the fabric of of
Yes.
like an ideas tapestry. I something you mentioned before is once you kind of got that award and you started getting on stage, you became more natural and more comfortable.
Hmm.
And I believe that is true of a lot of things. And perhaps someone might not be comfortable getting on microphone, being on a
Hmm.
webinar, writing content. And I'm kind of the opinion of like, well, the first couple times will always feel really uncomfortable. And it's probably behooves people to have a go, have a really kind of honest go at it in the way that feels authentic to them. And if in that process they feel a bit of a confidence boost or something is happening, there's a bit of a spark happening, to honor that spark and follow that. Though if it doesn't, it maybe that's not the channel for you. Maybe that's not the way the world needs you to turn up, or you need you to turn up.
100%. I think there's a phrase that I always kind of capture in terms of like when you start to look at promoting yourself, whether it's in the thought contribution space or
Mm.
whether it's in the personal branding space or whatever it
Mm.
is it's there you are, not here I am. There
Ooh.
you are, not here I am. And I fail at this multiple times over. But it's something that I've learned over time. And I picked it out of a book, and I can't even remember what book it was, or
Mm.
it was a podcast that I listened to. It was some years and years ago, and I was like,
Mm.
"Ooh, that's great. That's actually really good because what that does that it ensures that I'm grounded, and it ensures that I'm connecting with the people that I'm here to connect with, so that my brand or my content or my thought contribution is actually connecting." And so, if you ever see me speak on a panel, ideally, I like to be towards the end of the panel in terms of who's contributing, because it means the first words out of my mouth can be about the three people that spoke beforehand,
Mm.
about the room that I'm within, and then to answer the question that might come. Because what I've learned is I want to be building people up, and I want to make sure that I'm doing that in a way that is helpful and whatnot. And if I simply just talk about me all the time,
Mm.
people get sick of that. And the hard part is, right, as a bearded, tattooed, whiskey drinking, ripped jean wearing, tattoo artists at parties, crazy shit that we do that people go, oh my God, so you guys, the hipster cool accountants, is that people want to know a lot about us, and they want to know a lot about me. A lot of the questions are, Andrew, how do you? Andrew, what, like we're doing right now,
Mm.
what do you do, and how do you do that? And so the challenge is to, I think, is when you're in that personal brand space, is if it's all about your personal brand
Mm.
and not about others. I think that's the thing. So if you can master that craft
Mm.
of there you are, not here I am, at least first.
Mm. Yeah.
There you are, now here I am. I think you'll find that you'll connect a lot more and you'll become more comfortable, because maybe what it is you're not comfortable talking about yourself because you're humble and you're
Mm.
just a normal, decent person. And if you can say, well, at least I can start about others and then I can recognize that they would like to know about me, and
Mm.
now I'll give them what it is that they're here for. I think you'll find yourself, it'll be more comfortable. And it is. Over time, you get better at it.
Yeah, I really love that there is a self-awareness inside this idea of personal branding and thought leadership. I know that a lot of people look at this category of conversation as an intriguing one with of potentially ego driven, potentially
Mm,
sales and pipeline driven. Oh, I just want to get some money in the door. If I build my
mm,
personal brand, that's the way to do it. Or you're shilling something kind of very snake oily. And so I love that, like, underpinning all this that you do is obviously through Illuminate, it's very purpose and value driven, but there's a self-awareness of like, not me first. That's really
mm.
fantastic.
It's really hard for that to be appreciated and recognized sometimes, because sometimes you do just get wrapped up in how fucking great you think you are. And
Yeah, sure.
there are times I think that. I'll be honest. There are times that I'm like, you know what? I'm pretty damn good at this stuff. And I love it.
Mm.
But then there are times where you sit back and you said imposter syndrome beforehand. You're like I remember that first time I went to the UK and I spoke. That night there was a party, and I just went and sat on the steps out the front of it, and like just kind of cried, kind of didn't. It was like, what the fuck? I'm on the other side of the world
Yeah.
speaking to a room full of people who are chomping at the bit to hear from me as this special guest Australian thought leader person or other. And like, I didn't think I got my shit together at home.
Yeah.
Like, and
That's
it's I think it's recognized as you absolutely have things to share. If you're
mm,
comfortable to do so, if you can authentically do so, and if you can respectfully do so, you absolutely have the opportunity to, but
mm.
provided that you want to.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so that's one. Thank you for sharing that. I think there's a lot of power in vulnerability, and I've experienced moments like that in my career uh, as a musician, doing something really exceptional and exciting, and then immediately going, "Who the heck am I? Why am I here? What is even going on?" And yeah, I recognize that, and thank you for sharing. That's really quite cool to hear. Um, let's say someone now recognizes the value of and the ROI of personal branding, thought leadership.
Okay.
I've I've got a firm. It's doing okay. I'd like it to do a little bit better than okay.
Okay.
I see Andrew. I see other people doing a good job at this, and I'd like to make some pretty intentional efforts to develop a personal brand and perhaps get some of my content live. What is the 30, 60, 90? What's the 1, 2, 3 month plan that you would recommend to someone to say, okay, you haven't started at all. Here we go.
Okay. Step one is friends, families, and fools. This is with, I mean, any business model,
Hmm.
friends, families, and fools. Who are the people around me that enjoy spending time with me?
Mm-hmm.
Why? What is it about me that you see? What is it about me that you appreciate? What is it about me that you value? And
Mm.
the fool's element, when I say friends, families, and fools, like it's often the fool's element is like when you kind of like launching a product, say an e-commerce product, the people are going to buy from you, your friends, your family, and a couple of morons who kind of jumped in the way and found it out.
Yeah.
But the fool's element in this kind of scope is like these are the people who are not necessarily friends or families of yours, but they
Mm.
happen to engage with you a bit more. So we probably shouldn't call them fools, friends, families, and fellows.
Fans?
That's nah, not fan. Just
No.
friends, families, and just random connections that
Sure.
you seem to be unable to avoid. So I think you really need to connect and understand from them what that looks like.
Hmm.
And I contemplate whether you should do that before you think about who you are and what you stand for,
Mm-hmm.
or after. And I think you do that after, but you don't tell them it, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
wanna document down what that actually. Who am I? Who is Andrew? What do I love? What do I loathe? What do I like?
Mm.
What do I long for? And like put a bit of that in writing. Kind of like a little, I mean, I wouldn't call it a bio of sorts, but just a brain dump so that you write it down. And I like when you're kind of coming up with ideas that you do that, you put it in a drawer and you pull it out 2 weeks later, you'd read it and you'd be like, I
Mm.
won't change a word. That is
Oh,
me still.
that's very cool. I like that.
So if you're not going to change a word of it you'll put down, then it's great. And that's when you then, either in between that state or after that, that's when you go to your friends, families, and fools and you say, hey, who do you see me as? And if you can be a bit more specific, who do you see as, if you're looking at personal branding within your industry, who do you see me as within the accounting industry?
Mm.
So that's where you might go to business partners, team members, clients, but people who just seem to work, right? Great, that's who you see me as.
Mm.
And then you want an element of diversity in that too. So if you're going to talk to clients of yours that really love working with you, but they've been love working with you for 20 years
Mm.
versus some that have been working with you for 6 months and they love it,
Yeah.
make sure you get a little bit of diversity because we all change over time. And great. So I'd say that's your 30 in terms of what that looks like.
So going
Um,
deep, going personal, going intimate is your first step.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Understand who you are and ensure that that is ratified by others about who you are. So this is
Mm.
authenticity, right? Is this who this is who I say I am, and this is who people validate as who I am.
Mm.
Fantastic. I am comfortable that if I'm going to take action with something, I'm going to do it well.
Mm.
Great. I think the second phase of what you then need to look at is then looking at, and obviously, like you might be able to do this much quicker than what I'm saying, but I'm assuming that you have a full-time job or a business or something else you're doing,
Yeah.
and
Great.
this is like your little side hustle to build up.
Yeah.
Right. So the next stage is then identifying the opportunities of where you can be contributing within, and why
Mm.
you would be doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, at Illuminate, we specialize in a handful of industries.
Mm-hmm.
alcohol is one of them. So we will look after a bunch of alcohol product producers. And I'm drinking some whiskey. Unfortunately, not from one of them. It's from my favorite whiskey distillery called Highland Park. So
Highland
if anyone
Park.
randomly is listening to this who owns Highland Park, which they wouldn't because they're like mega owned in Scotland, and they need a new accountant, hit me up because I'd love to help you out.
Well, maybe we'll send it directly to them afterwards.
We'll do it. We'll send it. This guy would love to work with you. So we do whiskey. So then it's like, all right, well, what does that look like within this industry?
Mm,
Who else is contributing within that industry? And am I adding value to this space? This is important, I think. Um, Everyone else is taken, so be yourself.
mm,
If we're just talking about the same stuff in the same way, like you said earlier, if everyone just on stage is always just kind of swearing half the time and bringing the same vibe, we're
mm,
not bringing diversity of thought, and we're not contributing to thought, right? So I think that's really important to look at where you're going to be contributing it in, and understanding the lay of the land there. Who is contributing in this space? Who can I learn from? Who can I connect with? Who can
mm,
I understand with? And where do I fit within here? Is
mm,
this is it something that I do have to add? Do I have something to add here, or am I just recommunicating that? Now that's the thought leadership element. And if you go, great, I'm not going to be leading any elements, but I can still contribute to the elements. Fantastic. How do I do that in a way that reflects who I am and who I want to be working with? Firstly,
mm,
who I am, but connects to who I want to work with. Because a great brand divides. A great brand will piss people off and make people love them at the same time.
mm.
And I mean, I'm pretty
I
sure when
love that.
anyone talks about a brand, they always say Apple, right? They always say Apple is the brand which are
Mm,
referred to, or Nike. Think about the number of people that vehemently will not use anything to do with Apple.
mm. I've got
And
names
that
in my head. I know exactly some people
and
who
that might
steer
simply
clear.
be because they're just the kind of people who are like, nah, man, I don't like using that. But
Mm,
let's dumb the brand down. Let's think about Illuminate, my accounting firm. We have a brand that we believe is authentic and it's lived
mm,
out. And in the early days, it was reflected probably quite a lot of who I was, and less so now. And what it means is when people interact with said brand, they either love it or they loathe it. And the
mm,
idea is I don't want the in between. So if everybody loves you, you're probably not contributing enough. You're not thinking,
mhm,
you haven't thought enough about your brand and what that looks like. And so maybe your second step in this is find people that you don't work with and you don't connect with. For some reason, this client and I just do not connect.
mm. Love that.
Find a way to understand that.
Find a
That'd be
client,
interesting.
perhaps that you've lost, a client that's
Yeah.
disengaged or you've churned. Hey, can we chat for 15 minutes? I'd love to figure out
I mean,
why.
I've
What
I've
was.
never. I mean, we often do offboarding conversations, but I've
Mm,
never actually called them up like a year later and be like, "Hey, man, so like we kind of didn't get along, or
mm.
like for whatever reason it didn't work. Can you just go into all of the explicit detail around why that was?"
Oof.
I've not done it. It would be really interesting to do
It,
so.
yeah,
And
potentially very triggering or challenging, but I think there's a lot of
I
potentially
think
good
so.
data points in a conversation like that. I'm
Well,
reminded of I'm a big musical theater fan. I'm
cool.
reminded of a lyric from Hamilton. Are you aware of the musical Hamilton?
I've heard of it. I've
Yeah,
heard of it.
there's
He's a Formula One driver, yeah.
he is a founding father of America, and there's a line in that he has a person that he comes up against a lot in the show who is very kind of like you were saying before, doesn't. What am I trying to say? Let me rephrase that. He comes up against someone in the show who plays the field a little bit too much, doesn't want to ruffle feathers. And there's a quote saying, "I'd rather be divisive than indecisive,"
Mm.
and through that and through that type of attitude, achieved incredible things and achieved a lot more than this other person. And I really appreciate that. Like you can't be all things to all people. And you can be thoughtful, you can be nice, you can be encouraging, but you might not be everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah, if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for everything. If you want to be something for everybody, you can't be everything for someone.
Mm,
Like and I guess that's the kind of like the rhetoric that's out there. And I
mm,
love it because it's so true. And I remember early days of running the accounting firm and like, oh, we don't really do niching.
mm,
We don't really focus on that. And then it was like, oh, we niche in personality type, which we do
mm,
because it was. But what it was is like we were niching, we were doing that. We just didn't realize that we were. We just accidentally done it by building a brand that created a conflict of choice,
That's I like that.
that created like an emotional reaction of like, oh, that's so cool, or I love that, or I've been looking for someone like that. Versus what the hell? these guys look immature, or like, oh man, they're dumb.
Mm.
Like, I think we've had someone refer to us as the singing and dancing accountants. Um, I cannot sing and I cannot dance.
Yeah.
We did have someone actually who almost got a part in Hamilton,
Oh, really?
who used to
Fantastic.
work with us, who now works at Zero, who is in big into musical theatre. Mav,
Mm.
probably not going to listen to this, but if you do, Mav, I expect to slide into my DMs to say, hey. But so it probably would have worked when he was around, but
Mm.
not so much now. But yeah, so that's our 60-day stint, right? So 30 was
Mm.
like friends, families, fools, figure out who you think you are.
Mm.
The next stage is then looking within the space that you want to be contributing in to understand, are you leading or contributing in the conversation? You know, is there space to lead, and is your perspective different and unique,
Mm.
or are you contributing to a consistent thing? And then at the same time, maybe spot test, you know, what you're doing from a brand perspective with people who you do not want to be working with, or you
Mm.
have not got along, to be like, well, does this work? And then I think the 90-day is like, just be bold
Mm.
and do little things well, because I think sometimes people think they have to do the big stuff, right? You know, oh, for me to be successful, I need to be on stage talking in front of 1,000 people in 90 days. And it's like, what are you actually trying to achieve out of this? And so maybe that was like in your 30 days, like actually document what you're trying to
Mm.
achieve out of it,
Yeah,
so you
sure.
can be held accountable to it.
Yeah.
And at the same, actually, I'm going to add that, document what you want to achieve so you can be held accountable to it, and find people that will hold you accountable to it and
Mm.
give them permission, not just say, but like I'd like to use these words as, I give you permission to hold me accountable to the actions that I'm trying to achieve,
Mm.
and I request, I ask, I beg of you to do so in a way that is respectful, but is direct.
Mm.
So
Oh,
like,
that's
have that accountability, because when you get to
fantastic.
day 90 and you ain't done shit, if you didn't tell anybody about it, no one knows.
Yeah.
No one knows. That's fine. No one knew. So yeah, I think
Cool.
when you get to the day 90, then it becomes small incremental impacts. And then that's when you're starting to action the things. You're spot testing bits and pieces.
Mm.
You're starting to release it out. And much like we talk about when we talk about implementation of technology, and this is just my perspective, not at all tested, tried, or anything other than like what we've probably accidentally done over the years, is like, don't do everything at once. Much like you can't be something for everybody,
Mm.
be everything for someone. Choose a platform, choose an environment, choose an approach, choose a thing, and execute on that and test it before you move on to the next one.
Oh, I love that.
And it could simply be, I'm going to start to release a monthly newsletter. And within the newsletter, I'm going to be more intentional around contributing and writing of blogs, as well as the people that I'm connecting with, in a way to start to bring out the voice of my brand. Because voice, I think, in our profession, in our industry, the voice, what do you stand for? What are you about?
Mm.
Imagery is one thing, but voice is the other. And voice can be heard in typed words as well,
Yeah,
often not as
totally.
good as spoken. But I think it's that. And as you do that, you'll then figure out what that step looks like. So is it blogs? Is it videos? Is it and what does that look like? And then find that. And I think once you get to the end of the 90 days, that's your testing phase done.
Mm.
You're
That's
now in
fantastic.
your live mode, and you're like, cool, so now I need to actually execute on this in a consistent manner, and I need to understand if I need someone, because I think after the 90 days you figure out if you need someone to help you to do it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because I mean, and I know the personal branding space is something you spend a lot of your career in, and I don't mean to kind of chow down on you or other people in this space, but if you have to go to someone to help them develop your brand who you've never met, and they'll have like a system and a process to do so, I guarantee that it's not your brand. So what I would think you should do, and I'd love your perspective on this, Chad, given
Yeah.
you've spent a bit of time on this, is you build out what you think your brand looks like before you go to the person who's going to potentially amplify that. So
Yeah.
you test it, you go and you go, I feel comfortable and I feel safe of what that looks like. I'm now going to allow someone to potentially poke, prod, tweak, and change that in a way that I might feel a bit uncomfortable,
Mm.
but I know what I've said yes to and I know what I said no to. So I know when they're pushing it too much, but I
Hmm.
also know when they're not pushing it enough, and go from there.
Yeah, listen, I'd agree. I think that's fantastic advice. I think bringing in someone else to help you with those types of things is the same with any skill set. I mean, for example, someone I work with used to do all the graphic design inside of the company. They're not a graphic designer. They could pass some of the work, but doing that work initially themselves, it allowed them to comfortably go forward in hiring a graphic designer, and they knew what
Mm,
they expected and what they wanted and what that process was to look like. And so I think the same is true. You want to be you want to be challenged, but you should do the challenging internally and for
I
yourself
mean, we're
first.
talking to accountants here.
Mm.
How many accountants love their clients who have a fundamental base understanding in the financial function of their business
Oh gosh.
versus the ones who don't?
Yeah.
They're easy to work with. I mean, sometimes they might challenge you on stuff, but in a good way. But it's like, man, if you understand the fundamentals, it's good, and so that's good. Now,
Mm.
I should say that's if you are brand new in this stuff, and
Mm.
if you've got maturity in who you are, your business, and you've kind of been doing stuff, but with no intention.
Mm.
As someone, Andrew, who doesn't really operate with intention, so specifically since I've had my third child, I've stepped back and I said, you know what, I'm going to let things come my way, and if nothing comes my way, I'm going to take the advice of my friend from the UK that I maybe just need to chill out for a couple of years and see
Yeah,
what
I
life
love that.
throws my way before I
Yeah.
try and come back into things. But if you're already at that stage, I think your 90-day mark is where you're starting.
Mm.
You kind of know that already. You can probably spend 35 minutes or so just writing it down and reaffirming it. You can probably do the 90 days in 10 days. And that's where you then potentially either look at it and say, is this something I'm going to drive?
Mm.
Is this something someone within my organization might drive? You know, do we have a big enough team and skill set to do so? Or is this something I need someone externally to do so? Because if I'm like, Illuminate's kind of appreciated for in the world of brand in terms of what we've done with our business.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess maybe myself as well in terms of what I've done that. And I'd like to say that one of the things, if I was like, here's my resume, the things I'm great at, one of is identifying and building a brand that people want to be a part of and a community
Mm-hmm.
of people that people can feel safe within. But that's not doing the digital design. That's not pushing
Mm.
it out through the social media. Like that's this is what we stand for. And then it's finding the person who can bring that to life.
Yeah.
And my advice in that state, because I've found someone, Marcel from 1-2,
Mm-hmm.
ONETOO, who gets me really well. And he's
Mm.
done a handful of projects now with me. And I've worked with others out there as well who are fantastic, but particularly Marcel, I can just be like, this is what I'm about, this is where we're at. He's like, great, away we go. And like he hits the nail on the head well. And I feel it in my bits. That's
Mm.
me. I don't have to be
Yeah.
like, oh, that's not right. That doesn't feel right. And so if you're working with someone to help to build a brand out, try a few, see how they go. You're going to drop a couple of bucks on it. You might
Mm.
waste some money, but eventually you get the right person as opposed to working with the wrong person for too long.
It's interesting that you say that because all this self work that we do to try and figure out a personal brand or turn up in business, it's so powerful in so many other areas as well for collaboration and communication, relationship. You know where you're coming from, what you need from yourself to turn up well, and so you expect that of others. And if you
Mm.
find that you mesh well, then you're off to the races. I'm not a sports fan necessarily, but off to the races.
You're
And
kicking goals with 2 feet.
there we go. And I think you said it before that like you find that you do this quite well, and I would agree. My first understanding of Illuminate is that you're the company logo on every one of your collaborators pages because they're proud to have you there because of this brand equity that you've built in the industry.
What I would also say, and I agree with you on that, but what I'll also say is that potentially, and this is my thinking, might potentially wear the company logo on those things because of how we've contributed back to that business as well. Because it
Exactly.
wasn't about us.
Yeah.
It was like we have a brand, we built a brand that we do, but we also recognize that it's important to contribute in here. And as a
Mm.
result, they amplify our brand because
Exactly.
of the appreciation they have for what we do.
Yeah.
If I give really tiny little tips out there, a
Yeah.
little nugget tips, have good video and have a good background.
Mm.
If you're going to do video, audio, and I say that sitting here with a background that I think is hopefully okay and audio that I think is good, but like the I saw a very visible step up in feedback, appreciation, and engagement when video, audio, and the physical environment that I was within was improved upon, and that
Mm.
is so easy to do. It's like if you're building a personal brand and you're creating content for that, it's very easy to do.
Mm.
Either you go somewhere else to do it, or you make sure your current space is good, or you create a separate space where you're at to be able to do that. And it's not hard.
Yeah. I
It's
love
not
that.
hard, and it should just reflect who you are, but not in a weird daggy way. Don't be the accounting firm where it's like, here's a picture of me normally, and then here's a picture of me holding a football like I'm going to handball it because I love football.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I like that advice because it's a set and forget. And so you can make one choice one time and you'll forever benefit from it. And there's not too many things that we can do that. Like if you can set a process in your company, but you got to follow that process for it to work. But buying a nice microphone, or just
And
lighting
you'll
the scene
use
well.
that microphone and you'll use that camera for more things than just like, oh, I'm going to do a TikTok. I don't do TikTok, but I'm
Yeah.
going to do a TikTok video with this thing. Yeah, great, I'll do that. But also, when I'm on a Zoom call with a client, I now have a better microphone, a better camera. When I'm recording a Loom instructional in video, if you don't know what
Hmm.
Zoom and Loom are, Google it and you figure it out. They're rad. If I'm recording a Loom for people, now I have a better microphone. It's like those things. If you just simply look at, I'm going to go and spend X dollars for this one activity,
Mm.
and you don't understand all the other activities it can impact, you go, man, actually, I probably should buy five
Yeah.
because I don't
Yeah.
want to have to set up and pack down wherever I go. And so I do. I have my setup at home is the same setup here,
Yeah.
exactly the same screens, exactly the same dock-ins. Although whilst I've got a full-ish kind of setup here, I've got a half version of it at home. It's just
Mm.
designed to be that way so I can be efficient.
Andrew, you play in a lot of different channels, right? You do content online, you do content on the stage, you've got podcasts, and you're featuring in podcasts. I like these little almost micro tactics that you're talking about. How do you turn up differently in those different spaces? How do you measure the success of those things? Give us like a speed round of what different channels might
Mm.
require from you.
Yeah, good. Okay, cool. So, in the early days, my thought process around anything that I did, because a lot of the stuff that I've done is within the industry, and then there's also been stuff that I've done within my community, as in my client base.
Mm,
Those are two different type of activities you need to do, and they have two different outcomes you're trying to achieve depending on who you are.
love
So
this.
contribution to the industry was incidental, accidental, and just came about because people were like, "Hey, actually, we kind of like the way you talk about stuff, much like this conversation we're having today. Hey, it's kind of interesting when we chat with you. We should chat more." And I went, you know what? It's going to contribute back to the community, and that's good. And so I have to trust in environments like this that what I share will be heard and that people will appreciate it. And now I typically know if that's working well, the ROI is that other people will ask me to contribute my thoughts and ideas on those
Mm,
kind of environments too. However, I do need to sit back and go, how much time and capacity do I have to do so? Because I
mm,
care so very dearly about my industry, but I've got a team of 25 and over 300 client base and a few other businesses and three kids and a wife and a dog as well that
yeah,
I
yeah.
should be contributing to. So I have to really try to be intentional with the availability of time. And I
Mm,
think there is a point if you're doing stuff in outside of something that's directly about opportunity development for what you do that generates you revenue, is you have to be intentional about how much you're willing to give away. And at what point in time do you say, absolutely, I'd love to contribute to that. However, I've maximized my kind of pro bono environment within the industry.
mm,
And as such, would you be comfortable to pay me a fee? And now I very rarely do that. But I have done that a handful of times. Thankfully, a lot of people are getting better at saying, hey, we'd like to pay you for that. So there's a bit of ROI you could say on that.
hmm.
But realistically, for me, the industry is the industry. If I can get a person to hit me up and say, thank you, I go, job done.
Mm.
I just need, if one person can be changed from everything, if one moment can be there. So if you're listening to the podcast and you're like, hey, Andrew, that was really helpful. We appreciate everything you did. Chad was way better, but Andrew, you're okay. Hit me up and let me know because that
Mm,
helps me to recognize that I was doing a good job. So
mm,
that's great. So that's that industry. So we move the industry stuff, and there's an element of impact and growth, and there's an element of what I can deliver for nothing, and what I might need to have some return in value. And return in value could be monetary value, it could be opportunity, it could be exposure, it could be other things. Now, if I'm being more specific with my personal brand and thus then business brand within the business that I run,
mm,
now let's just think about the accounting space because that's what this podcast is all about. What ROI am I getting on the time that I'm spending in this environment? How
mm,
many inquiries am I getting? The quality of those inquiries. I mean, so I'm tracking. So within our CRM, I would track where an inquiry came from. And so a good one of them is from a handful of good friends that I have in the UK. I now have a stream of inquiries that pop up. Now it's not, I'm
mm,
not getting 10 a week, but I might get 10 a year. And typically, when something's coming from the UK, it's a really interesting type of thing that you want to be
mm,
engaged and involved in. It might simply be because it's cool to be collaborative and fun, but it might be because
mm,
there's some complexity involved there. So, great. So, there's a referral channel that we've created because I've exposed my personal brand to other people. And
mm,
not only have I done it digitally, but I've hopped on a plane and I've flown there. and I've drank beers with them.
Mm.
And I've like you think about personal. I think often we think about personal branding and like the digital space in terms of like, oh, what platforms are you on, or what does your newsletter look like, or what webinars you're doing. Your personal brand in human form is the
Mm.
most valuable personal brand because
Hmm.
what will happen is people will meet you and be like, whoa, that's not the person I've seen.
Yeah, totally. Yep.
That's authenticity. Because what that is I've rehearsed my ability to record. So any I don't know if you edit this, but like any podcast that Ali and I have done on our All Aussie Accounting Adventures, we have not edited it. We have
Mm.
not reset it. We have not scripted it because we want to ensure that when I walk out the door, I'm still that same person and it doesn't feel like it's dodgy. So that's important. So UK, great. There's potentially a referral channel that comes through there, but there's also relationships and growth that I get out of that. So that conversation I had with that person over there, I would go, man, that's worth 3 trips to the UK to
Mm.
have that conversation.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you would do
Fantastic.
things for what 3 reasons. One, because it makes you more money. Two, because it makes you more efficient, i.e., less cost, more profit. Or
Hmm.
three, because it makes you feel so damn fucking warm and fuzzy that it's worth it.
I
And
think
that
that
bottom one,
that's an ROI that people don't consider is like, how do I feel about this?
and it's stupid, right? But like if you can
Yeah.
if you get yourself in a better mental state, you will
Mm.
execute on things you need to do better.
Mm.
So it could be the ROI in going to this thing is that when I get back into the office, I'm in a better headspace to perform better. I'm a better leader. I'm a
Mm.
better advisor. I'm a better accountant. I'm a better partner. I'm a better parent. Whatever that looks like, that's important. So I'm going to Tasmania next week for Whiskey Week.
Yeah.
Now,
Fun.
people will be like, "Oh yeah, are you now, Andrew? Oh yeah, that'll be fun." Oh
Yeah.
no, 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 no. We look after the alcohol industry.
Mm.
We have a number of clients in the space. We know it well. One of our team members is has ownership and operational involvement in a couple of alcohol brands as well, and so it is a space that we know well. I'm also probably going to drink a bunch of whiskey and have a really good time. But the ROI there, I've been very explicit. If we are going to go and expose ourselves, we've got some new merch that we built out, which is cool.
Oh,
On the
fun. I'd love to see that.
the idea is that I don't want to have to approach people. I want people to approach me.
Mm.
That's what you want. You want people to approach you. You're not approaching people, people approach you. So I don't want to walk around and be like, hey, so I'm an accountant. Do you guys need an accountant? And I want them to come up and be like, hey, like, so our t-shirt on the back, like with all our branding cool, it says balance the booze.
Yeah,
Accounting and
great.
advisory for top shelf alcohol brands.
Awesome.
And
Awesome.
so eventually there's going to be someone that sits there that goes, fuck, I need some help.
Yeah. And I imagine at the moment that's a pretty big thing with the cost of living at the moment. I know it's hurting a few brands, and
Yep.
you could be the superhero in your. I imagine like an AS color T-shirt. Or
Yeah, right on. But that's what's important, right? So we have intention behind it. We have a plan about what we're doing.
Mm.
There's an element of leveraging personal brand here because Jason, who I'm going with, has relationships and connections within the industry.
Mm.
So he has become known as a bloke who gets business owners. He's become known as a guy that cares about people's mental well-being. So he has a side project which is probably more important than anything else he does, which is about mental resiliency in business owners.
Oh,
So he's
beautiful.
known within that space.
Mm.
I have a brand in my own right with what I do, and if we combine the two together, it's Captain Planet. But what it means is when we're
Yes.
in that space,
Mm.
the idea is that we become known more and more for that stuff. So our ROI is I want 3 warm, if not hot, conversations
Mm.
that happen once I get home. Just
Yeah,
three
fantastic.
conversations. I only need to close one of them
Mm.
and it pays for itself because of the value of the work that we do. But what you have to look at though is if I harken back to the UK thing, I probably didn't get a referral lead opportunity out, and I didn't go there for the referral lead opportunity. I should state that I just went there because this sounds fucking cool, and I get
Yeah.
to contribute to my community. And wow, like what an opportunity! I can't believe I get to do this. This is stupid. And my wife was like, "You should do this. This is great." But it was at least 2 years before I got the first referral
Mm.
out of that, and I
Yeah.
went there every year for. I think there was a break because of the old lockdowns, but I've been there 3, maybe 4 times now, and it's like cool. It will pay you back if you're consistent.
I love that this really ties nicely back to what you said before of be intentional, but you don't have to have a strategy necessarily. You know, I'm going to go there. I'm going to talk to people. I know that I can provide value because that's my ICP, and this is I do good work here. I'm going to have conversations because that's just the nature of having a drink with people in the industry, and then through that provide value, and it'll come back to me. I'm sure about it.
If it's like I have to come back with this thing and I'm going to do that, like what will happen is like, yeah, you might have a personal brand, but it won't be a here you are. It will be here I am. No,
Yeah,
there you
yeah,
are.
and
It'll be all about me. And what happens is people are like, can you fuck off? We're
yeah,
here at an industry event. We're trying to hang out with our mates.
mm,
You're not our mate. You've come in and you're trying to pretend and prove to us that you
mhm,
know what you're doing. I don't even know who the hell you are. And so that's where it's very dangerous, I think, to push that. And I know that I can fall foul of that at times
mhm.
because my favorite game to play is when people say, oh, so what is it you do? I go, well, what do you think? And after about 4.5 hours, I eventually tell them that I'm an accountant.
Yeah, right.
And then my natural Andrew ADHD build out a script sales kind of mode goes,
Yeah.
now let's say the 7 or 8 sentences that I'd normally say after that, that almost feels like it's a sales pitch that's robotic. So you have to remove that.
Mm,
There you are.
not
Now
here I
here
am.
I am.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the now here I am. That's great. And it's such a massive shift from the typical business card frisbee that we get at networking events, or the let me tap your pass at the conference 1,000
Mm,
times. I haven't even said hello yet, but I'm going to tap your pass kind of lead KPI. It's really heartwarming to hear that throughout all of these tactics, strategies, methods, channels, really it's about provide value. And it seems to be a common theme throughout all the episodes of the podcast is, are you being of value to people? Are you
mm,
being true to who you are? And the more you can be true to who you are, the easier it seems to get, and not expecting anything back from it, and just allowing it to come full circle if it's going to come
mm.
full circle.
I mean, what's the saying? Like people don't remember what you did; they remember how you made them feel.
Beautiful, love it.
So, how did you make someone feel in that environment? And you said business cards. I have a digital. Well, it's a physical card, but it's a one-off card. I have that, which you may not know. Tapped, TAPTT.
Mm-hmm.
These are fantastic. It's NFC or QR. And when I show them people that with my branding on it, people remember that, and
Mm.
so they send me their details. They get my details, and if I choose to hit them up afterwards, they will remember me.
Mm. Yeah.
Because they were like, "Oh man, you had that real cool thing with a brand," and that they remember the engagement, the experience, because it was about there you are, now here I am. Oh, you would like my details? No dramas. I never ever will ask for people's details
Yeah, that's fantastic.
unless I'm obsessed with trying to buy what it is that they sell, and I'm like,
I
I
need
need. So
this. Give it to me.
like
Yeah.
I met a lovely woman at an alumni night the other day, and she like runs 3 dessert food trucks. I'm like, I need to know who they are and where they are.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I tried to pop in them on the drive home, but it was too late, and they were shut. I was devastated.
Oh man. Well, hey Andrew, this has been phenomenal. I so
Epic,
appreciate the
bro.
time. This has been such a great chat. I would love to send some people your way. If people are looking to follow the Andrew journey, where can they find you? What's the best content to engage with, or how
All
can
right.
they just get in touch?
Best channels you can. So, channel number 1 would be the podcast that we run, which is All Aussie Accounting Adventures. There are 2 versions of it. There's the
Mm.
Ali and Andrews All Aussie, which is my great friend Ali Garrett, who runs All In Advisory in Adelaide. And there's also the Tech Edition, where Jack Teal and Amy Holdsworth, who are in the accounting tech space, they run a secondary podcast about the tech version. So go
Mm.
to accountingadventures.com.au or just look for All Aussie Accounting Adventures for podcasts, and you'll get to hear 6 to 7 seasons of us talking shit about our industry.
Mm.
Second thing you can do is hit me up on LinkedIn, Andrew Van D. Beek. And there's also a website that I did a while ago, andrewvanderbeek.com. So if you feel like you'd like to go deeper with me in terms of like hanging out and having a chat, I do some mentoring here and there if I get a chance to, if it aligns well, and often try to contribute, like I said, contributing back to our industry to build other people up. So you can hit me up through there. And if you're bored, our website, Illuminate, ILLUMIN, the number 8.com.au,
Mm.
has a digital whiteboard on it.
It
You can draw a
does.
picture and you can download and send it to me. And 9 times out of 10, it's a penis. If that's your vibe, you do that. And if you want to draw me something differently, the answer you're supposed to be drawing is, if you could do one thing tomorrow morning, what would you do? But draw the pictures.
Listen, maybe that's not. Maybe the answer is what you're receiving. And also, if you are the Highland Distillery of the whiskey, Highland Park, please get in contact with Andrew.